Hello, how's it going? So Kristen has this awesome thing called the Heavies. I'll put this up there on Twitch and all this other shit. Let me also go turn me online. So you got this, guys. So yeah, I finished my Kickstarter. I'm happy. So this is how I give back to the community, is that I go and give back to the Kickstarter this way. Hold on. So let me edit the post right here. So Kristen, what made it start off with the empties?
Oh my goodness, this is like the origin story of the empties, and it's kind of wild because this has been my passion project for the last 5 years. I have been working to create this horror story, and it kind of started off, I'm gonna go here because I can't hide the fact I'm a filmmaker, and I was trying to figure out how to get a story told in a story that I loved, that was achievable on a lower kind of budget, because movies cost a freaking ton of money. So I was kind of calculating like what would be my best options in the genres that I love, and comedy and horror are the lowest budget kind of movies. Now I looked into it, and I am not funny at all, but I think humor is one of the most important things in art, and horror is a genre which you can tell on a lower budget, but you can use, it really benefits from having a sense of humor when you approach something so dark, because otherwise you're going to get kind of a one-note kind of scare.
Yeah.
So I really dove into a horror story, and I tried to manufacture something from movies I had seen before. This is my origin process. It took me a long time to figure out that I needed to fucking tell a story that scared me and not a story that I had seen before. So I was like, what is the most horrible thing in my life, and what have I gone through, and what kind of thing could be fun and entertaining for a person to watch? And I'm like, relationships. These things are full of pain and full of madness, and you lose your fucking mind sometimes in relationships. But it's a thing that we all kind of experience if you are madly in love with someone. So I went from kind of trying to do a horror story that was like a cabin in the woods kind of thing, to really focusing in on what scares me, and that is relationships going wrong, and where you kind of just lose all sense of yourself and all sense of control, and just lose yourself to another person. And I thought, wow, zombies really fit this kind of concept of losing yourself. And body horror is my favorite type of horror. I don't know why, I just love watching twisted contortions in someone's body, and I also think it's because it starts with a human and they're kind of changing. So I finally found the great story for a movie, and I was like, oh, it's still really expensive to make a freaking movie. So I don't know anything about comics, but people are telling me how awesome they are. This was years ago. Now I know some things about comics. But I looked into it, and I was like, holy shit, this medium is awesome. We get to tell a story visually, which is one of my favorite things. I'm not a word master. I prefer to just have images tell a story. And I was like, okay, comic books could be a real thing for me, and this could be a real way for me to tell this story and work out my ideas through images instead of through words. And so I began the journey of learning how to make comics about 2 years ago, and hired a team of artists, and that brings us to today, where I have a graphic novel.
Hey, you know what? Always starting like that is a great thing. And the thing is that you just figure you're going to do it. Oh, hey, what's up, Helen? Hey, Jeffrey. Would you do a movie about silly phobias that may not be serious to some but control other people's lives? Well, Kristen, what do you think?
Would I do a movie about phobias?
Silly phobias. I am fucking allergic to eating. I am scared of eating ass.
Fear of pretzels, or fear of salt water, or something ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, I feel like you could get a good horror story out of any, like some of my favorites are like trauma movies, right? So we've got The Toxic Avenger, which of course body horror kind of thing, but those seem kind of silly but have deep personal core messages about like the outsider being a hero. And oh my god, Toxic Avenger is a superhero horror movie story that's just delightful and really twisted and off-putting. So I feel like Trauma is right up my alley, and those kind of tackle silly phobia kind of things. And I would do any kind of fun horror movie brought to the table. I'd be open to it.
I mean, by the way, if you want to, you can go into the my link and go in so you can participate and see the conversation. So if you want to reply to people, that's fine. You just want to mute it. But
I don't know how to do the link by phone. I'm gonna like.
It's on your phone. Okay, never mind. It says, my friend Rose is saying, I thought about what you said about what scares you. What scares me is dead fish. She started laughing.
Oh my god, live fish scare me. Like, I don't even want to go in an ocean. I don't want to look at fish. I do not eat fish because they do scare me. And my roommate once sadistically tortured me by cooking salmon in our apartment and then forcing me to eat it. And I swear to God, I wish I had filmed this scenario because it took me an hour of like crying and screaming. I made this shit up. Like, I took a piece of that salmon and I put it on my arm. I was like, it's burning me. Oh my God, I'm allergic. I'm gonna die. This was after like half an hour of being afraid to even touch this stupid fish. And he finally got me to eat a bite, and I swore I was dying for like 10 minutes. But of course, I wasn't dying at all. I wasn't allergic. I had no reaction to it whatsoever, except for this mental block. So, yes, dead fish. Oh my God, I hate dead fish. I can't do it.
So no sushi then, and you moved to LA. What the
hell?
No,
I don't do sushi, but it's really pretty. Like, I go out with my friends when they eat sushi, and I'm like, wow, it's very colorful. You would think I would like this food. It's very beautiful.
It's colorful.
But no, I don't eat it. I eat the vegetarian sushi.
Yeah. Hey, Lawrence, what's up? Real Deal's on there. He's my friend that does, like, fucking Real Deal comics. It's about people in the ghetto. Oh, Rose said, I react the same, but I don't eat it. Well, Rose, I guess when you come out here and visit me, I'll have to take you to this vegan place where they serve vegan sushi and it tastes like the real thing. And she's like, I bet she's like, fuck you.
Wait,
right now.
Why would you want it to taste like the real thing?
It tastes like the real thing. I'm not vegan, but I went to a vegan place with my friends because I like trying shit. I like to see what other people do. So this was a good vegan place. It's in South Pasadena. It's called Veggie Paradise, Vege. It's fucking good, dude. It's like all vegan, but it tastes great. Like, they even have pan-fried fish.
I want vegan to taste like sushi. Like, I get why you want vegan to taste like chicken, because I like chicken. But sushi, why not eat... Okay, I get it. You don't want to eat fish.
Well, no, it's just, like, if you don't want to eat fish, you can eat that.
What do they even... Okay, that's just kind of mind-boggling. Like, I don't know what vegetable can taste like salmon. And I wouldn't want to know, but that's another horror story of some processed food something making fish vegetables. Man, not for me.
I wouldn't eat it because it's still my phobia, laugh out loud. We have, like, really... Like, Rose and I, we just say the worst shit about things. We're kind of funny. We're like assholes about everything.
I don't want to eat something that tastes like fish, ever. I don't know what happened to me as a child, but something is there.
Fish like did awful things to you, right?
Some fish did something horrible to me. I have no idea. But I don't like the water even anymore. Like Jaws, that's one of the #1 movies that actually scares me. I know it's really fun, but it actually scares me. I'm like, oh, no.
It was based on a true story.
Maybe?
No, it was. What it wasn't a great white. What it was is that it was a bull shark or something. And I think it was a bull. Because bulls, I think, can swim from salt to fresh. So this happened in New Jersey. And it was around, like, the turn of the 20th century, like 1912 or something. And this bull shark was going around eating kids out of the ocean. Like, biting off their legs and shit. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah,
and
that's scary.
Yeah, and then it's like after what, and like they even found like remains of a half-digested kid and shit like that. I actually like kids, but just explaining the
Yeah.
gory shit. And then they finally killed it. I forgot how, but after like 4 or 5, I think it might have been months of this shit going on. Like they would just be playing in the river, nowhere near the ocean. This motherfucker goes and grabs them.
Yeah.
Like I got this is way before McDonald's, so I guess they had to think of something.
Yeah, this is too scary. I don't know if I could even make this movie like of sharks in water because I would just be too freaked out. I'd be like, no, don't go in that water. Okay, I need to stick with something that I'm afraid of, which is relationships gone wrong, and go from there. But not, I'm not even gonna go in the water. No.
Lauren said, "Damn, you know everything." And then Rose said, "The shark has a name. It's Bruce." I think they actually did name the fucking thing. I'm pretty sure it did.
They did. Now the shark does. It's named Bruce. Yeah.
Is it
there's
Robert
a lot
the
of
Bruce?
problems with Bruce. The salt water from this is a mechanical shark that they used to film Jaws.
Oh,
and
yeah,
the
yeah,
salt
yeah.
water, of the ocean actually corroded the shark, which is why the movie went 100 days over in the production schedule and way over budget. It was due all to those issues with Bruce, which I think actually helped make the movie a lot better because Spielberg had to find really creative ways of not showing the shark, which we all know.
That's the point of that. That's the point of the scariness of the shark. Like it just comes out and grabs you.
Yeah, it's just super creepy.
Yeah.
But I love horror, and I think movies like Jaws are great examples of horror to look to because they don't keep it like on a one-note scare. You have dramatic ups and downs and humor, things like on the beach where kids are pretending there's a shark. You know, you have false scares. Those are important to any horror story. But to keep the tone kind of light and fun and then go into some really dark, heavy stuff. Like Jaws has one of the most hard-hitting scenes where the mother comes and says to Brody, like, hey, you could have prevented the death of my son, and he's dead now. And that's just really hard to watch because it's emotionally true, but the rest of the movie around that has this light kind of tone, which allows for that scene to have an even greater impact. And it's a really brilliant movie, so those are the kind of things I really love.
See, the thing is that for me, it's like what I like. Let's see, what I would like about Jaws, and I see a lot of. Hey, Denise. Hey, Gianfranco. What a lot of, and Rose is saying Adam West, Bruce Wayne had shark repellent. Hey, Jeremy, how's it going? So what it was is that what I found, what I liked was the character development, and I find that lacking in a lot of movies sometimes. Like, oh yeah, we're cardboard cutouts beating the shit out of each other. Hey, Denise, how's it going? So what ended up happening is that like this is supposed to be a movie that's supposed to be kind of like not really a slasher flick, but a nature sort of horror flick, I guess.
Yeah.
And what I liked is they all sat down and they kind of just got drunk together. Like they in that scene where they're all singing and shit, and then you find out like I forgot his name, but the guy who owns the boat said, "Oh, this is fucking real and shit," you know, like where he was in the war.
Yeah, when
and
he tells war stories.
Yeah, but they're all singing together, getting fucking drunk as shit, and they're all singing to. You don't have that shit anymore. It's like this sort of weird, protracted dialogue all the time. Yeah, we're not really talking.
Well, I feel like we try, the trend in movies today is to use a lot of shortcuts in visual language and in storytelling device because they like use references to give you the story and it's kind of like quick paced. Instead of actually going through a character development, you're just going to kind of be like, oh, you already know what this is because you've seen X amount of movies, and so we just use shorthand to refer to that kind of subplot and move forward. It's a different time for movies for sure than Jaws, which was a blockbuster, but very unlike the movies today. Though horror actually, I think, is in one of its greatest periods for movies currently with, in the last couple of years, we've had some of the greatest horror movies ever made. and things that we haven't seen since the 80s has a fantastic horror genre era. But today in movies, we really have a resurgence of a kind of abstract kind of horror with
Human
movies
Centipede.
like House and The Witch and Us and Midsummer.
Yeah.
We're really getting into horror that critiques the social political climate again, as opposed to horror of the early 2000s, which is Paranormal Activity and Insidious and things that are more about the scares. We really kind of elevated the horror into this Twilight Zone kind of commentary on society. So I think horror is the genre to be right now, and I'm really happy to have a horror story contribution for it. I mean, I do sometimes wish that I was more political, because this is not a political story. This is a story of people in a marriage and a relationship. It doesn't really comment on society as a whole, but I think that my underlying theme is that people have this complexity of a sort of good and evil in them, and I tried really not to judge my characters too much when writing this, because they're going to do some really horrible shit, but it's really based on, it's a 3-character story, so if you don't like what they're doing or can understand their motivations, the story's going to fall really flat. So apart from being not political, the only real thing I have is that people are complex and will do a ton of horrible things, and you gotta roll with it.
Well, I think it's weird because it's like back in the days, like in the 60s, you had Night of the Living Dead, which was kind of a commentary on race and society. And now we have the overt one where it's like, no, us, the other side of us. Midsommar, I think from what I understand, I haven't watched these movies, so I might be totally off the mark, but what I've been noticing as a trend is the thing of racial movies. It's not the racist, it's racial, this is what we see. This is the horror, how it sees in our eyes. Trying to remember Jordan Peele, how he did Us. There was another one he did. Get Out. That was that kind of broke Hollywood in a way.
For sure.
Yeah, the really racist people weren't the podunk Southerners that we make fun of, and it was we're the people on the East Coast and all this other, they're the ones that you would think are so accepting, and then they did that. I'm like, whoa, what the fuck, that was different.
I know, that was disturbing. I have problems with Get Out, and I know that's considered one of the greatest horror movies of recent times, and it was one of the only ones up for an Oscar, and trust me, I want these movies to be up for Oscars, so I was very happy with Get Out being nominated, even though I wasn't happy with Get Out as a movie, because I don't really understand. I mean, I am talking from a white female perspective, so I don't have any input from the racial side of things, but I don't understand why attacking allies, the people who you want to support you and are supposed to be cool and tolerant, is necessarily the right point of view. But the main problem I had with Get Out is that the white people who are supposed to be oppressing the black people are stealing black people's bodies, which doesn't make any sense to me, because these are supposed to be the intelligent, upper-class white people who are allies with the black people, but they envy black people so much that they will literally transplant their own brain into a black person's body, which is if you have a black person's body with a white person's brain, aren't you still going to face the same discrimination that every black person faces?
I think it's
why would you want to put yourself in that situation?
I think it's kind of it's kind of a commentary, the people that you're supposed to be helping, and I'm not making this a personal attack on anybody, I'm just saying, I've experienced this a little, it's weird because it's I went to a party, right, and these two people from Portland, this older couple from Portland, and they were very much, we did the right thing, we support every racial thing, blah, blah, blah. They came up to me looking all sad, and I was like, why are you sad? I was laughing, I was having a good time, and they said, it must really be so tough to be Asian. I'm like, what? I've run into that type of condescension. And again, I'm not black. I'm not speaking from the black experience, but I'm not white. But I'm just saying, I think he was commenting on that it was sort of this weird love-hate thing where from people like that say shit like that, and they think they're doing the right thing. So that I'm trying to be specific. I'm not trying to say everybody who is an ally who's white or whatever are terrible. I'm saying like this type of schism where it's like I'm on your side, but don't you know it's good for you? And it's like, no, I'm my own person. Fuck you. You know, I know you're trying to help, but you're being condescending to me as a person. Like, leave me alone. You know, like that type of shit. So I think that sort of element he was kind of getting at was is like there's this weird love-hate where it's kind of like they hate their privilege, but then they kind of like it, but they feel that they can push the narrative around even though they're not, you get what I mean? They're not like the people that are like the stereotypical, that do still exist, you know, the racist hillbillies and shit. But it seems like that's more of the narrative now, and it's interesting to see. So I think it was just, it's been unsettling for people. I think that's why it was nominated, because it was unsettling, because it was not the typical stuff you see. And Midsommar, I think it was just like, they were supposed to travel to Sweden, and everybody's like, oh, Sweden's this really wonderful place, and I guess they do all these fucked up things in this movie. Yeah, so it's like, it sort of breaks this illusion, like this beautiful, but it's shot like so beautiful. You're like in this horror, you know?
Yeah. That was one of the most interesting things about Midsommar is how beautifully it was shot and how bright it is. You usually have horror taking... This is why horror is such a great genre right now, because they're really taking these chances and changing what you think of as horror, even with Get Out and with Midsommar being so bright and sunny. It's like a very strange thing to twist into the dark, disturbing story that it is. So, that's... I mean, I've just been in love with horror genre for a long time, and that's how I got here.
I think I got kind of bored with horror. Like, I'm not into horror movies. I know that sounds weird because we just talked about it. For a while, I didn't like the fact that we're just doing trigger warnings, trigger. Like, when I found that, I understand some movies work like that, but like if they did, for a while they were doing that, and it was like annoying the fuck out of me. It's like, okay, stop like putting rape murder / on every movie. Okay, like some movies you need to work up to it. But I mean, recently, they've gotten more. I think it's like the new horror is that more or less it's unsettling. It bothers you on a certain level because you half expect horror to be this dark, dank, rusty blades, blood, and it's nothing like that. It's just basically how it kind of fucks with your head. So I guess it's psychological horror, but it's not quite.
Yeah, there's more psychological horror. I think the term currently they're using is elevated horror, which does go more into the mental side of things. Like The Lighthouse, that movie was very much a, is this even happening in reality?
It's like I can't tell what's the difference.
Story. The psychology of the character's nightmare is kind of happening, and you don't know the reality even. So that's the kind of thing. The witch really gets in your head and under your skin. As far as what I like, I mean, I love this new elevated horror that's more political, but for me, the story that I created, The Empties, is more of like an 80s kind of throwback horror where I do have a sort of monster. There's a mysterious illness that is getting people sick, and it transforms their bodies and minds and kind of rots them. And so we have a monster, we have a relationship, and it's character-based, but I also, the best thing about 80s horror movies is, again, that they added a bunch of humor. So you're going to have movies like An American Werewolf in London, and you're going to have movies like The Fly, and they all have a sort of sense of humor going on to balance the crazy over-the-top gore that you're going to have. Whereas today, there are, like, Jordan Peele, he comes from a comedy background, so his movies actually do have a great deal of humor in them, and that's another fun thing about, like, Get Out, is it opens with a humorous but really intense kind of scene, and it balances that, like, white girlfriend humor But other movies like Midsummer, there's not that much humor to it. It's very depressing, very much a drug trip into a cult world, but excellently done. But I just feel like the stories that I want to see have really excessive gore and a lot of humor in it as well to kind of get you drawn into characters.
You know, the Living Dead series, actually, it's kind of funny because it was very serious for the first, 2 or 3. And then they got in the 80s, it got really campy as fuck. It got silly.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was, like, funny.
Dan O'Bannon, he did Return of the Living Dead, which is like the next type of zombie movie from Romero's Night of the Living Dead, which is very amazing political commentary, one of the best movies ever made, I think. And then the 80s, we get Return of the Living Dead kind of branched off with a different kind of punk zombie kind of thing. And it was definitely firmly rooted in that punk scene. We also have things like... in that vein, I'm thinking like Reanimator and
Reanimator
other kind
gnarly as fuck too. That was crazy.
Oh yeah, those movies are so ridiculous and over the top. Love them.
That was actually from a Lovecraft story, I think. Reanimator.
That is Lovecraft
but they adapted
story.
it from modern. Well, at the time, modern. Yeah. So like they there's a comic called Hack and Slash, which is kind of derived from that too, which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, the director, Stuart Gordon, the director of The Reanimator, also did another Lovecraft adaptation called From Beyond, which is also another body horror kind of thing. Lovecraft, really ridiculous, over the top for today's standards, but I love it. And actually, maybe not for today's standards, because today there's a Lovecraft film that just released on Blu-ray and DVD, and it's called The Color Out of Space, which is brilliant. It is one of the best movies I've seen lately. I mean, maybe it is because it has this 80s body horror element, and it's got Nick Cage going like way batshit over the top, and it's very colorful, like Mandy, which is the same producers of. So it's got this but it's realistically disturbing Lovecraft, as opposed to like From Beyond, which is just kind of a ridiculous, fun, sadomasochist type kind of movie. Ridiculous.
Like there was this one story. It's kind of funny. I'll go to Asian horror real quick. Lawrence just said, like, it's been real as usual. The Loud Dog's got to go fill his bowl. I'm outie. Lovecraft, a hell of a guy, he was saying. And then Rose was saying, I like the original Fly. Rose Chateau, they said, do a movie called The Tarantula where I turn into one. And I read Wizard's article about The Grudge. So, I mean, the thing is, like, Asian people, it's like sort of like the creepy bit. But it's weird because, like, there's a distinct difference between Japanese and Korean horror. Like, Korean horror made it into that whole thing, like The Train from Busan, where just like waves of violence just hit you. But that's the point about it. It's like weird because it's like, I think a lot of the people that are making these movies are kids from the people that were in the Korean War as kids. Like my family, my mom and dad came from Korea. They were kids during the Korean War. So that was some shit right there.
Yeah.
So they were, like they were kids. And like, I remember my dad sitting there and just starts giggling at me. And I said, what, Dad? And he said, oh, yeah, I was remembering when I dodged my bullets on my way to school. I'm like, I just looked at him like, what the fuck, Dad? But he, like, that's how he copes with it. He laughs about it. Or my mom would tell me stories about, like, this bombing happened and everything. And I said, so, and then she'd trail off. And I'm like, so what happened? And then she's like, don't talk about these things. And then she wouldn't talk about it. And I'm like, okay. You know, so I guess, like, in a weird way, it perversely made me more into, like, wanting to see the morbid shit of things, which is odd. But, you know, it's, like, just crazy. Like, the thing is, like, Korea, like, Train to Busan, it's like, when you look at how violence all of a sudden hits you. Like, even though they're on a train, the outbreak just happened, and then the train is safe for now, and then there's this passenger that's infected and bites somebody, and then half the train's fucking infected, and they have to shut it down, and then it's this whole crazy shit. Whereas, like, you know, also there's, like, this is based off of folktale of The Tale of Two Sisters that came out in the early 2000s. And if you watch the Korean version, I haven't watched it yet, but it's based on a folktale. And it's about this guy, he had a wife, and he had 2 twin daughters that were beautiful. Then he got married to, like, his wife dies. Then he got married to this woman that was ugly and mean. I don't know how the fuck that came from that. And then she had a son, and she mistreated the girls. And one of the things she does to kind of fuck with the girls is that she takes like a rat, skins it, puts in her bed. It's like, oh yeah, your daughter had an abortion. I'm like, I'm reading this as a kid, like, what the fuck? I mean, it goes on and on and on and talks about reincarnation and shit. And it's like translated from Korean to English. It's sort of overly simplified. But at the end of the day, like, how they discover how the daughters were wrongly accused and murdered. And, like, I don't know how the fuck the stepmom held on to this abortion. Like, she took it out, like, this fucking carcass, right? And they cut it open. They found rat crap. And then so they find out she's full of crap. But it's, like, weird. Like, he goes and he takes the daughter out because she's disgraced the family. And he's about to kill her, the stepson, or her stepbrother. And this tiger comes out and then rips half his body off. And it's like leaves him crippled and shit. And the other daughter commits suicide to join her other sister. It's like crazy as fuck. And then it's been some years after they both died. And then I think the magistrates in this one area keep dying of fright. So they're like, what the fuck? So this new guy comes in and he's sitting there, and then they visit him in his sleep and they tell him what's going on. And then eventually the justice is served where the stepmother's strangled, the stepbrother's crushed under a bunch of stones, and the guy's like, oh shit, well, he gets married again. The girls come in and say, well, we really like your new wife and shit, so we want to be reborn as your daughters. So they get reborn as the daughters, and I'm like, I just read this and I'm like, what the fuck am I reading? But that's the original Tale of Two Sisters, so it's based off of that. But the psychological part is like, this girl believes that she has a twin sister, but the stepmother's kind of a bitch. But then the dad's really cold, even though the stepmom tries to be friendly. So she doesn't know in her own head if her twin sister was really killed or if she has a twin. So they remade it in the U.S. with Sarah Michelle Gellar, which I didn't watch. It's weird because I'm not into horror that much. It's hilarious, but I'm talking extensively about it. But I read the stories behind it and how they tie in, and I'm just like... So, it's crazy.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure half of that didn't make it. Is it The Grudge, probably the U.S. version? Half of that Nightmare probably didn't make it in there because that's very extreme.
Well, it's just about,
but
like...
I don't know how I got so twisted, loving all of that stuff. My parents did their best not to twist and pervert me, but I grew up in a very religious family in West Michigan, and I definitely was not allowed to watch horror films, so I didn't see a horror film until I was probably like 14 years old, when I like snuck watching it at a friend's house, and I felt like all the Christian guilt for doing so. But I also had nightmares on this very ridiculous horror movie. I don't know why that twisted me into loving all of these gruesome tales, but somehow it did.
Well, my mom didn't raise me like this, like saying fuck every 5 minutes, or like, you know, joking about poo and pee and stuff. Hey, Lindsay, how's it going? Poo and pee all the time. But it was there. It was great. And it was like, there you go. So the poo and pee and all that nasty shit, it was just like, I don't know. I started laughing like an asshole about it. And I think you probably, because you contributed to my Kickstarter, I'm not outing you, I'm just saying, because you would have received this update. And if you didn't get to read it, I know you're busy with yours. By the way, guys, contribute to the empties. It's fucking awesome. I put it as a perma-pin up there, so fucking do it. If you are on Twitch, just be sure to do that as well. Click on that. But in the end, what ended up happening was that I kind of read up on that phenomena. Like, I don't know, I just found it funny. And it wasn't just, oh, poo-poo humor and that's stupid.
Yeah.
I just liked the fact that you could just take somebody and do the loss of noise. I think, like, if you read Story of the Eye by Jorge Bataille, that's kind of how I feel about a lot of shit. Although they talk about jerking off and stuff all the time and everything, and that's probably not what I would do in public. But that whole, it's just, you read Story of the Eye, because I remember Bjork mentioning that, and I always like went for a period of time reading the weirdest fucking shit I possibly could in college. So Bjork was talking about how she was doing one video, and she had just read Story of the Eye, and she wanted a soft-boiled egg for the video. And then her producer was like, no, and they had regular fried eggs. But when her producer read it, it's like, okay, I see what you mean. So, like, I was like, what's the Story of the Eye? So I sat there and I read it. I'm like, the fuck is all this shit? And then I read James G. Ballard's Crash. and that was weird. That
Yeah.
was about sex and car. Did you read it? I forgot if you. I don't know if you read
Oh,
it.
I haven't read it, but David Cronenberg did an adaptation
Yeah.
called Crash.
Yeah.
A masterful movie, ridiculous, but yes, it's about fetishizing car crashes and
It goes
fascinating.
it goes deeper than that. Seriously, I mean, even though I think James Spader's fucking hot, whatever, but that's just me. But it's actually I liked him best in Supernova, which was the fucking most shittiest movie I ever watched. But I just paused it on the parts where he's like in his military gear. I'm like, all right, I can look at this all day, you know. But
Right.
anyway, so what ended up happening was that in Crash, it's not really just fetishizing about car crashes. Like when you read how Ballard writes, it's like this weird abstraction about how the body impacts, and even when he's like having sex in the book, because it's a lot of LSD trips, because this was written in the '60s. Like even it just seems detached. Like, oh yeah, it's kind of like operating a machine, but it's not like fetishizing it like how they did it in the movie. I mean, the movie they could only do the surface.
But even the movie goes deeper. The movie kind of shows that this is like pushing the limits of life, and it's trying to like live on that edge, which is what they find so sexy. I mean, they do have a weird thing for body mutations and that kind of thing. It is Cronenberg in the film,
Yeah.
so I enjoy that as well. But the end scene is very powerful in the movie because they're attempting to. I shouldn't give it away, but so
Recreate
instead of
things.
telling you what the end scene is, I just want to say that this is like a look at how far people can push the edge of life to get the most out of it. And even movies like there was a documentary recently about it's called Free Solo about this guy Alex who climbs a mountain without a harness on his own, and people were like, this is irresponsible to nominate this kind of a movie for an Oscar. But if you watch that movie, it's kind of the goal of a lot of artists is pushing yourself to achieve this perfection, because he literally had to do a perfect climb in order to survive, and it was life or death situation. If he made one wrong move, and he had climbed this mountain endless times before in preparation, but to do it without a harness means that if he makes a wrong move, he dies. So he's pushing the edge of perfection and trying to achieve this one glorious moment in life where you do something so well and do it so much better than other people can do. It's kind of the same kind of underlying theme in Crash, is pushing yourself to the edge, even though it is by pushing yourself to the edge by getting in car accidents and living through it. But same kind of idea.
I mean,
and I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I would say this, like, if I had to have somebody do that movie about that book, I would pick Cronenberg again, because he kind of knows how to go that abstraction, which is very interesting about it. So, yeah, it's like, I actually like weird movies like that, because it's sort of like, I've always liked surrealistic movies. I've always been a fan of dreams and them having their processing and almost prophetic means, because you can't go one school or the other. Like, you have to look at it with dreams. It's like it's puke of the day, which can happen, it's your puke of the day like regurgitating in your head, or it's an actual thing where subconsciously it can be almost supernatural. Like, after friends of mine have passed, they show up in my dream, and the interaction is so deliberate that I can't be like, no. Like, even in my dreams, I've, like, one of my good friends who passed away suddenly, she was in there and it felt like she was alive. We were at work, and I turned to her and said, how can you be alive? You're dead. And she just responded like, and it was the weirdest thing. And I know people can be skeptical, but my own experience is that I've experienced all like streams of consciousness in dream state. So it interests me, like, that whole thing about taking the abstract in your head and kind of going with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wonder to myself, like, when you look at supernatural and the occult, whether or not you believe in something bigger than yourself or not, I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong in this, I kind of wonder if it's a different plane of physics. Like, at one time I was watching this anime called Silent Mebius. It's been over 20 years old. But it was about, like, Tokyo, like, had a big meltdown, and it was the cyber psychic police. So you had people that were completely into the supernatural realm. You had a priestess, you had, like, people that were descended from demons, whatever. But then you had the other hand where people that were cybernetic. Like there was this one woman named Lebia, and she actually had cybernetic implants in her, so she could talk to her computer, and cyberspace was her game. And it was very interesting because they talked about it on this level, but it's sort of like you kind of, sometimes people look at it and says like it's another plane of physics maybe that people don't understand. So spells, incantations, or whatever, and we have that ability to open that other plane of physics. And I think our ancestors were kind of more aware of it, even though scientifically they were held back. And it's interesting now too, like with this generation, and I'm not saying that as like, oh, this generation, but I'm noticing people are more accepting of witchery, occult, and everything. So it's weird because we're in the state now where it's like we have science, hard science, and then but we have witches and all this other shit. So people are more inclined to believe in that as well. So I think it's interesting because I think we're marrying finally the idea of the supernatural versus science and thinking that somehow they're intertwined with each other. Like you have people that, yeah, it's like that do the law of attraction stuff, and people might laugh about it, but I take a look at these things like obviously people follow this because it works for them. How does this work for them? How do I see how this works for them? And it's like in a way like there is a will, like sometimes with people that are gravely ill. Like when I went through my own thing, people were surprised at how fast I recovered. They were going like, that must have been you. Now some people say, well, we prayed and she got better. No, it was science. And I say, well, you know, honestly, I felt it was both. Because I felt like when I went into that hospital, something guided that nurse to say, look here in this area where your pancreatic mass is. And then I had like a great insurance that set down things into place. And the very responsive doctor said, we got you on a good team. And the team that I had, the surgeon that did my thing, I later talked to him. I said, how'd you get so good at Whipple? Because the Whipple would be about 10 hours long. He did it in 3. And he's like one of the best. And he said, oh yeah, in my residency, just in the last 6 months, I just ended up doing a lot of them that the senior surgeon wouldn't show up. He said, you've gotten so good at it, just do it. So it was just like something else kind of, I felt, was guiding and lining up all the right people to do the thing. And I was in a good hospital, and I got transported to a great hospital. It was Adventist. But, I mean, they didn't push religion or anything, but the nurses took it upon themselves to nurture you emotionally. I mean, they didn't go like, oh, let's sit down and pray. They were just talking to you. They really listened to you. They were attentive to you. They had a lot of love for their job. So I feel like on a whole end, everything worked together to make me better. And then all I had to do was put in the last piece myself. It's like, how much do I want to be better? Because I actually literally had to, the day or two after surgery, get my ass out of bed and walk. Because that was the only way my digestive system was going to kick into gear. Like literally, I've never had that much pressure to fucking fart in my life. They're like, you have to pass gas. You have to. I'm like, Jesus. I said, fine. So what I did is I went on YouTube, said, where's that fucking noise that makes you shit? Oh, okay, here's the brown noise. And I played it, and I went to bed, and I woke up the next day, I did it. So like, hey, science, right? But it's like, I think, you know, we can be guided to do the thing. I think it's not an exclusive thing. I think both camps are wrong saying things are exclusive. It's like, okay, there's a smart way to do it, but there's also a way that you just know. Like they call it the intuition, the word of God, whatever. It's just you got to follow it, and it's not your ego, because your ego will in a bit. But just if you get this thing just in your gut, like I got to go here. You may never know. So I've been kind of doing that more myself, and it's weird because it's actually working a lot better for me. So, and as I'm not saying that, you know, logic and science don't have the thing. They actually do fit well, even though it doesn't make sense right now. It's like the bigger picture is this, if that makes sense. Like we're human, we have a limited scope of whatever. We can only see what we hear and touch and think and feel, but we can use those to our advantage. So it's like just to see the bigger picture. I'm not saying that you have to have a completely clear idea of the bigger picture, but if you have a goal and you're going for it, that's at least a start. So, I mean, it's interesting when we're talking, it's like, oh, Rose is just telling me, okay, Gen X. she's in her late 20s, and I'm Gen X, so you can tell that's what date me. It's like we're the ones that say, like, when we see the millennials and the boomers go at it, we're like, we just kind of laugh about it. We're like, yeah, okay. Because the boomers were our parents, essentially. Even though technically I don't think my parents are boomers because they weren't raised in this country. they came here, but they weren't raised, and they actually went through a real war. So I'm kind of like, I can't say okay boomer to my parents. Like, they're boomer age, but they're not boomers. So, but it's just like looking at that shit, and then it's like the millennials going like like that. And I'm like kind of laughing too. And again, it's not out of condensation. It's just interesting. Like, I'm in this place now where it's like I've gotten old enough to see like the generations grow up and become adult, like the generation that grew up as a kid become an adult, and the people that I viewed adults and as parents and as authority figures, and here they are going at it. And we're just like, okay, because it's weird because like I would guess I don't know if millennials would be my kids' generation. I don't have kids, but if I had kids, but I would say like zillennials, like in their 20s, early 20s, would be the Gen X's kids.
It's called like iGen or Gen Yers. I don't know. It's hard to keep up with the young generations that they're talking about. Yeah.
They shift it all the time. It's weird. It's like
they do shift it. Well, because it's hard to it's happening, and when you're defining a generation, if they're still in their development phase, it's hard to be like, yes, the 10-year-olds right now are going to be, pretzel generation.
I don't know where they come up with his names. Like for me, Gen X, I actually missed it at the time. Like I was in my 20s. And they said, oh, you missed it by a few years. You're a Generation Y. I'm like, okay, whatever. I guess we're lame, whatever. Yeah. And now I'm classified in Gen X. Like, I think it would be 40 to...
Well, you can even be older but still fit with the ideals of a different generation. So it's never going to be strictly like a year that you were born that you fit into these principles. But they're like saying the general trends of society that you grew up in are these. So you get to be a millennial, and you get to be a boomer, and you fit more in these principles because of how you grew up. But yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, because like that was like when we were in our 20s, it was the 90s. So it's sort of like, it's kind of weird because we saw the transition from absolutely not being connected at all to the internet to being connected. So it was the weirdest thing. And I grew up in Silicon Valley, so that I saw that shit firsthand. Hey, Derek, how's it going? Yeah, like we did the BBSs and shit. So everybody like got into academic probation, talking on this new thing called the internet. I'm like, I went over that on summer, whatever, you fools. And I never was in like academic probation. I mean, I didn't have like super stellar grades, but I had a 3.14, so that wasn't bad. And everybody's like, oh, I fucked around and I got on academic probation. I said, well, that is because you are indisciplined. Fuck you. And Rose is saying old soul, basically. Yeah.
Seems like it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of funny because it's like, I don't know, it's just weird kind of looking at this day and age nowadays. It's like everybody is like, you guys, it's like, I remember when there weren't 24-hour news cycles, and then when I became an adult, that was a thing. And I kind of wonder if that adds to the anxiety of everybody lately. Like, they hear the same old shit over and over and over again. Rather than, like, we're turning into the 5 o'clock news. And like, oh, I only get to hear about stupid shit, like, today. All right, cool. Even then, I don't really watch TV. Hey, Derek, how's it going? So, yeah, Rose is going, like, the 90s were the best. They were, but I hate that fucking hair trickle thing, like, right here. Fuck that thing. I hate that thing. I don't ever want to see that ever again. You know, the thing with girls that would wear it, and then they put, like, a little tendril there, and it looked really fucking weird, and I just put your hair back, goddammit.
I had hair in the 90s. I had much longer hair, and I would twist every single freaking day. I don't know why. I did this for prom once, and then I was like, oh, I can do this hairstyle every day. So in the 90s, I would twist braid my hair back, and then with the rest of my hair, I'd like curl it in like a big bun thing. So I'd have 2 strands of curly things out front. But everything was braided, twist back,
oh, I know about
curly
that
mask hair. I don't know why I took that. I mean, I have short hair now, so I don't have to do anything to my hair. Yeah. But I definitely spent like tons of time in the 90s fixing my hair up into this crazy prom do every single freaking day. Like, I don't know. I was wearing tie-dye and any color pants that I could wear. Oh, 90s were a crazy style decade because, yeah, I was in high school. I would wear Lee pipes, which were these, like, massive pants that were, like, the pant leg was this big. It was like wearing a skirt.
Was it kind of like
And they were
pants?
for skater punks. So you'd wear, like, Vans and Lee pipes and tie-dye, and that was my thing in the 90s. And the Matrix, but that was end of the 90s last year.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. It was like I went to college in the 90s, too. And it was kind of weird. Like, I had more big glasses and shit, so it's like I could go and pass for Daria, I guess, back in the day. My family was kind of like Daria in a way, too. I mean, like my parents, my mom was like the hardcore like realtor woman and everything. So it's like sometimes when other women talk about like, well, my mom was this person and I learned a lot of bad habits. I'm like, huh? Like my mom was like the top 5% in Silicon Valley real estate lady. So if I wanted to have a really powerful role model for a woman, there you go. When she had been a homemaker, like at the age of 40, she decided I'm going to make more money. So I asked her, Mom, why were you a realtor when you had because she has a master's degree in physical organic chemistry, my mom. So it's not like she's dumb as fuck. She's really smart. So I was asking her, like, why did you not go into chemistry? Because I would think that would be something you'd want to do. She's like, oh, I knew that I could make more money as a realtor with less time. I'm like, okay. So she gets that.
Answer, though, you expect someone brilliant to say something like that, where you're like, it's less effort for more money and means I get to do more of what I want.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is that like with my dad, it wasn't like he made shit money either. Like he was a mechanical engineer, but it was like, so I had two parents that like fucking knew what the hell they were doing. So it was like, I mean, yeah, I had my issues with them, but it's like, I don't know. It's just weird, like, when women sometimes come up to me and they say, like, well, my mom was this and that. And sometimes they make her out, like, to be this. I don't know if it was just me, but, like, the angry homemaker, the angry single mom or this. And I'm like, and I'm not trying to make fun of people. This is just what people were telling me. And I'm like, I can't really relate because, like, my mom did real estate and she's in the top 5%. I'm like, I mean, that's the thing. And it's like, I guess that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because it's like I sort of inherited some of that. Like, as a realtor, like, to build your business, you have to start from ground zero. Like, you have to throw a lot of money in advertising, all that. You have to, it's all legwork. I don't think you really get any money until you sell your first house. And especially if you work through a realty company. So with her, like, she had a partner too, but she eventually dumped that partner and went into herself. Like, not, I mean, she worked for a office, but she still, like, did a lot of her own shit herself. And it was kind of weird how she was her one-woman office type thing. Like, she got this, I got that, oh, my friend Rose says, high school in the 90s? You look younger.
And then, yeah. I do look really young.
Yeah, because I thought you were younger than that, but, well, you're younger than me, so that's fine. But, yeah, so I just was like...
It's good to look younger,
Hey, you must be happy in doing what you do. That helps, like, being young, looking you younger. Like, you take care of yourself and you're happy with what you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like it. It's weird for me because I guess this is not too different. And sometimes I made the comparison of like being an artist is kind of like being a doctor. Like, you have to grind at it for a while for people to get a reputation. And with doctors, that's how it is. They think, oh, doctor, easy money. It's like, no, they have to work a lot. Like, I didn't know exactly what it took to be a doctor. And it seems to me, now I could be wrong. Anybody who's in the house who's a doctor, don't take offense to this. But it seems to me like you do residency for a while, like just figure out what you're going to do. And then you end up specializing. So I know with my brother's brother, my brother-in-law's brother, excuse me, I don't have a brother, brother-in-law's brother, he actually specialized in urology, but it was weird because when they found out my mass, he actually worked on Steve Jobs' Whipple as a resident. He wasn't the head surgeon, but he was the one that worked. I guess he got to touch his organs, I don't know, but Steve Jobs' Whipple surgery. But he didn't specialize in that, but he knows cancer and oncology and stuff. And I think he does other operations from what I can understand. So it's like kind of crazy that way, how it just a lot of fluid things lead to one specialization. So I just thought that was weird too. So it's like, as an artist, and I'm not saying like nobody else can fit into this allegory, but like writers too. I think even though I technically write, I don't write like a writer does. You know, I do more storyboards. I do more this. Whereas when I have friends that are aspiring writers, to me, like they're getting into it, they're like, how do I do this? I'm like, here, talk to my writer friend. I have no idea. But I mean, I think it might be the same, right? As a writer, you think? Like you work hard at it, and then just finally you'll get something.
I think it's a ton of marketing, a ton of sticking to. Actually, I know more about the film industry and how the people who just stick around long enough are the ones who start getting more and more attention. The people who like show up. So it's the same for all of my writer friends because, yeah, you write one book, you're not going to most likely get established from that first book. And that's where I'm at right now. I have one book, one graphic novel with the Empties. But with the film industry, it's the same kind of thing. Like, people move out to Los Angeles to be here and to work in the film industry. And you're going to be working at a position that's not a showrunner or a director right off the bat. You're going to be working in as a production assistant or getting coffee or at a studio somewhere. And the longer you stick around, the more people just see you and kind of get to know that you're still here. And after a long enough time, that can tip the buckets to where, like, you were working on a lower level, but these people know that you're around. And the longer it takes, the longer you're there in the game, the better it kind of gets for reaching that level you want, where you kind of can then hit. So yeah, it's just a lot of like prep work and time and doing the thing.
I think I think that people don't know you when you first come out here, so they don't know whether to invest in you or not. Because like I kind of got that as an artist, like they don't know you, they don't know if you're gonna fuck off or whatever. But then once they get to know you, they're like, oh, okay, I know about your reputation. Awesome.
Yeah.
So it's
true. You're building a reputation because you get out here and you're not going to be taken seriously if you're here for less than 3 years, honestly, because most people will leave within that time. So you're going to be like, are you even going to be able to be around in this state long enough for me to invest in you and make a project? We kind of have to know and get tested through that. And it's really frustrating for artists because you think that you're supposed to make your career happen within, 2 years, 3 years. And it's very unrealistic kind of goal to set for yourself to have a 2 to 3 year goal to be successful, because in general, at least for film, it takes about 10 years from start to finish to have your film conceived of an idea to distributed in theaters. It should only take you a year when you have it ready and funded to then create and edit and have ready for the theater. But it's going to be a 10-year process for your first film, most likely. Or you're going to self-fund it, and you can do it in probably 2 to 3 years. But it's a very long game for film, especially. And then knowing with graphic novels, that definitely is a time investment as well. You're going to have a longer time investment than you think when you start this process.
Well, also I think what's good about you doing this Kickstarter, by the way, guys, throw some her way on the Kickstarter. Let me actually see if anybody's donated right here. Let me take a look. You already got one donation, so that's a good...
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, yeah, before the show, somebody threw you one, so we had 111 backers. So, okay. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that this is also, recorded. So this is also recorded, so it's kind of it'll be out there and it'll talk about your shit and everything. So when we were talking about, when we were talking about that, it was what was it? I just totally, no, but I mean, you've done what? How many of the Empties have you done for the Kickstarter for the Empties?
I did 3 Kickstarters prior to this. I had separated the graphic novel down into single comic book issues that were 22 to 32 pages long, and I funded for the first 3 comic books. The graphic novel now is 6 comic books, all collected in a 150-page graphic novel. So that's what I'm funding currently, and it was kind of nice. I decided to take a break after funding the 3rd issue to, instead of funding every single issue from then on, to just really focus in on creating the graphic novel and getting every detail the way I wanted, and then funding for the entire thing. So I just felt that that was better for my mental sanity, because doing these Kickstarters does take a lot of energy, and takes a lot of energy away from focusing on getting the images correct and the art all done on time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, of course, you got to take the time that you need to with this as well. It's like that's something that people totally undertalk. They say, I got to go. It's like, no, let me take a moment to rest, and then I can do it right. So, yeah. No, I get you on that, because, like, it's like I was going to say, you're doing the right thing because you're building up interest through the Kickstarter community. So you're kind of like just kind of building it so you will have fans that will actually graduate to the movie once it happens. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like with Demon Bitch. Like, I didn't kickstart the first Demon Bitch because I don't know how popular this is. I kickstarted the second Demon Bitch and the third, and now it's turning into this sort of phenomenon right now. I mean,
I love it.
Yeah, I think it gives people an excuse to be naughty in their head, if only in their head. Like, we're taught, don't hate, you shouldn't hate, and everything. It's like, look, the thing is, what I have seen too is that even though we're preaching all this like empathy and shit, I have never seen people act more shitty to each other in our lives, like the online bullying. And I think the thing is that people, I mean, there are people that genuinely, and I'm just speaking in general what I have observed. And again, this isn't true for everybody, but I notice people, like, the moment somebody does something shitty to you, like abusive or mean or whatever, and you're mad, and then they say, well, I don't have time, you know, or you're told that, or like, you know, you shouldn't let it get to you, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, wait, motherfucker, this is getting to me, because this is fucked up. And you know what? And the more, because I used to follow that school of thought, like, okay, I'll do that. But then what they mean by get over is shove it down, because I'm uncomfortable with you seeing you deal with it. And I was like, no. And then I realized, like, sometimes people need to go through their hate pile to forgive somebody. They need to go through it. They need to be angry about it. They need to go and then they're done. And I have found that a lot of personal demons have been put aside if I had just said, you know, I'm fucking angry and I hate this person for what they did. They're a fucking piece of shit what they did. And I may not have to think about it all the time. And then the moment that happens, a lot of times people get released. Like, I think, in a way, it's kind of, I joke around and said, I guess I'm doing the Lord's work here, even though I'm drawing about a fucking demon from hell and I'm writing all this awful shit. But it is kind of true. I mean, it is like, you know, people, I think, need a way, or, I mean, I didn't grow up Catholic, but I think they need a way of confession. Like, you know, I really went through this and this is fucked up. It's like, okay, yeah, you went through that and that's fucked up and that's not okay. So what you should have is that, you know, okay, you should be able to say, I fucking hate this person, and you're done. And I've noticed people who tend to act more hateful is that they're the ones that kind of espouse that the most. Like, they go, well, I'm just going to go and not talk about it. You should just go over it. And then the next phrase they'll say, but I want to stab this person. I'm like, yeah, you're really fucking over it, motherfucker. Whatever, shut up. I mean, as I said, I've run into all kinds of people, so maybe that's why Demon Bitch is so delicious to everybody. It's like, wow, you took the ultimate and fucked up and you made it funny. I'm like, well, I had to, or else I was going to murder somebody. But, you know, it gives people an outlet to not feel so mad or angry, or, I guess, helplessly angry. It feels like they take back their power by saying, yeah, I fucking hate this person. Well, I can't allow that person to hate me because they have power. You know what? They're going to have power anyway if you're not going to deal with it. So you might as well deal with it now and process something beautiful out of it. That's been my thing. So that's why I do Demon Bitch.
I love that.
Oh, Quentin just said, you look like Carrie Kelly, a.k.a. Robin from The Dark Knight Returns. That the guest star. Have you ever read
Dark Knight Returns?
She's the female. She's the woman Robin. She's actually pretty badass. She's a kid. She's got the same haircut. Yeah, she's even got glasses too.
Okay, I don't think I saw The Dark Knight Returns, just The Dark Knight, and then
it's a comic. It's a comic. It's an iconic comic. It's a graphic novel. It's by Frank Miller.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really good. Yeah. Yeah, he says...
I'm so in the movie world. I do read comics now as much as I possibly can. Love them so much, but I recently got into comics like 2 years ago, so my main experience goes like, oh, you say The Dark Knight? Then I go directly to the movies, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but that is wonderful, and I will check it out.
Yeah, Carrie Kelly was really cool. She's
Yeah.
very, she and Batman kind of develop a father-daughter relationship with each other, because she's like probably she looks like she's a teenager.
Yeah.
Not 17, I would say probably 14, 15. But she's pretty badass, you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm glad that I'm getting the comparisons to that
There you
badass
go.
character. I wish I knew it. I always feel really bad, actually, now that I have a graphic novel and that I've only recently, like within the last 2 years, been delving into this world of comics. And I mean, it's cool because it shows that anyone can branch into a new form of art and give their sort of take at it. But I really love knowing a lot about the art forms that I'm obsessed with, and it's so interesting to me to have this new art form that I'm just digesting and just understanding now, which, I mean, I just love comics, but I wish I knew way more about them.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's like you learn. That's how we are as humans. Like, just because you get into something doesn't mean you know everything about it. You know?
It's my new hobby.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Quentin said WB made the animated movie years ago. I remember they did. So you might want to check it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, actually, I just realized, yeah, you kind of look like her. So you can cosplay as her.
Maybe I'll put her up as my profile picture.
Yeah, actually, it's pretty good. She's like, it's got the same shape of glasses. Like her glasses, I think, are green framed, but it's the same shape of glasses. Now I realize, like, oh yeah, you're right. So anyway, it's 1:36. So, but thank you for being on the show, and I'll give you the link for Twitch so you can share it if you'd like. I mean, or you could share this link here, and take a look. Oh, apparently Batman was voiced by Peter Weller.
I can share it in my newsletter today. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, the Facebook Live you should be able to share and everything. So, very good.
Okay, great.
So let me go ahead and say goodbye, guys. Goodbye. And I will talk